In the world of electronic music, where the pulse of the city meets the rhythm of the mind, lies in a genre that transcends boundaries and elevates the spirit. Welcome to the soulful revolution of atmospheric and intelligent drum and bass. So, emerging from the early 90s, atmospheric intelligent drum and bass, or atmospheric drum and bass, has woven complex rhythms with lush ambient soundscapes, creating a genre that's introspective and it's accelerating. You might know the journey begins in the UK, where breakbeat hardcore split into jungle and drum and bass. So among these new sounds, a subgenre emerged, one that married the breakneck beats of drum and bass with the atmospheric textures of ambient music. This was the birth of atmospheric and intelligent drum and bass. At the heart of atmospheric drum and bass lies its complex breakbeat rhythms and deep bass lines. But what sets it apart are its cinematic soundscapes, ethereal paths, and emotive melodies, creating a listening experience that's both energizing and meditative. And artists like L.T.J. Buchan with his iconic music, or Goldie's Timeless, and Seba's Painted Skies have been instrumental in crafting the genre's core. Their tracks are not just music, they're journeys through sound and emotion. Producing atmospheric drum and bass is an art of balance. It combines sampled breakbeats with synthesized sounds and field recordings, all while maintaining a dedicated mix that allows each element to breathe. So let's break down a whole typical track and how it's constructed. So beyond the clubs and studios, atmospheric drum and bass has left its mark on film, scores, gaming soundtracks, and even meditation apps. And its ability to evoke deep emotions makes it a versatile tool for creators across mediums. It's more than just a genre, it's a manifesto for the soulful exploration of sound, and it invites us to listen deeply, not just to the music, but to the world around us. And as we close this journey, remember that in the spaces between beats lies the potential for profound connection and understanding. So thanks for joining me this exploration, and let me just dive into this one and see what this manifesto really looks like. So let's get started with point number one, which is the most obvious one, the atmospheric cinematic soundscapes. And usually in the past, it's quite obvious that samplers like or romplers like the Roland synthesizers were used for that one, and they are really capable of very interesting sounds. So it's quite easy, just if you hit any chord, and by the way, usually, right, it's not just major chords, it's usually a minor chord, and then again it's more complex, like if you're major, minor, seventh, and so on. I'm not really into this one, but if you get some or study some music theory, you very easy get into how you can transform any minor chord into some more complex chords. You push this button or these buttons on your keyboard, and then you're quite easily having some nice evolving pad, and then maybe you're adding some other synthesizer on top of that and some soundscapes and some drones and so on. And quite easy you get into a 1 minute intro of very interesting atmospheric drum and bass, intelligent drum and bass intro. And I think this is quite there. By the way, one point is here, maybe just if I head over now to the chords and chord progressions, there's no chord progressions or something ongoing. Maybe some minor stuff is ongoing, and again, if maybe some tracks break the rule and so on, but try to stay on one chord, and rather don't think of fancy jazzy chord progressions. We are not making jazzy drum and bass. I'm not talking about liquid drum and bass, for example. I'm talking about atmospheric drum and bass. And I think the less chords you use, the deeper it sounds and the more evolving stuff gets. It's just like if you think about painting a picture and you have using less colors, in the end, the idea and everything else, you have more focus on that one rather on the colors you're using. It's the same with chords. Right, we are doing drum and bass, and the latter one was bass. So once we have our evolving pattern, everything, maybe think about the bass line, what you want to have. Usually drum and bass tutorials, if you check it on the internet and maybe listen to some tracks of these days, it's full of crazy Reese basses, complex bass lines with I don't know how many layers and so on. That's not atmospheric drum and bass. Focus on the most simple bass line you could think of. It's an 808ish bass line. Means like just focus on the sub and try to play an interesting notes, maybe with some longer decay notes. And with that one, you should think about like a bass line that is really going fast forward, supports the pad, and is not sounding too cheesy. It should not sound like a funky town, whatever that is, right? It should not boom, 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 boom. Go around, but really like go with the flow. And once you have that, then you can really think of anything further. So one advice from my side just here as a side note is, right, don't start with the drums. I mean, yes, we're doing drum and bass, but very often I find myself in starting with a drum loop and doing some drums, but don't start with that one. So once you have your pad, your bass line, then maybe head over to the drums. And again, this is no guaranteed receipt. It's just based on my experience, it helps not to start with the drums because you quite easily stick yourself into a specific sound. But once you have your evolving pad and maybe the bass line, which also then defines the rhythm and also the chords and the notes and the feeling and so on, the drums should support that one. But let's head over to the drums. As you might be familiar with, drum and bass evolved from sampling drum loops, and so therefore we have of course our famous Amen break and other samples like the hot pan sample and helicopter sample and so on and so on. But there was a time in the 90s when the producers were sick of using the usual drum loops, and so therefore they started to develop their own drum loops. And from that one, they started to like imitate the hits and the individual drum sounds with samplers. And from that, two-step evolved, like boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck. Why I'm mentioning this is, I think if you compare like drum funk or jungle to two-step and the usual drum and bass sounds, I at least distinguish really between these two things, because on the one hand, you have these very complex tracks I, for example, prefer to do, but on the other hand, I also have some kind of two-step boom chuck tunes, which is basically consisting of bass drum and a rim shot, usually not a snare, but usually a rim shot, a quite like catchy short rim shot, and then maybe some shakers or something in the background, which is also quite remarkable. So once you decided for yourself which kind of drums you prefer for your track, implement them, right? So go with that one. And very often it happens to me that a session of a drum and bass track, I start with super complex, crazy aim and break, intelligent drum and bass, breakcore like stuff. But then I start, okay, let's maybe go with a two-step drum, very simple track, and it drives way more. And I'm not saying that the either or the latter one or the either or the other one solution is the solution for atmospheric drum and bass. Just try it, yeah. And very often, maybe you just merge them together and you get your own rhythm, but really be creative there, because this is why it's called drum and bass, right? We do some crazy stuff with drums, which is interesting, but also with the bass line, it should be a major part of your track. So by the way, while talking about chord progressions and drums, very often I see people maybe sending me tracks and stuff they have done, and then it's kind of like Jesse means like Jesse Rhodes piano sounds or something, and then interesting evolving chord progressions. At least it's me. I'm not interested in that stuff. It's nice. It maybe goes into liquid drum and bass. It has, of course, a meaning. It's jazzy, but I'm talking here about atmospheric drum and bass. Just try to distinguish that one, and not just because the sound is coming from the 90s and there people started to have this evolving jazzy influence into drum and bass doesn't mean that this is atmospheric drum and bass. So atmospheric for me is something really that it evolves over time. It could be also a kind of like transy, like trance. Don't mix those things together. And yeah, out of that liquid funk, drum and bass evolved, but for me, just something being jazzy is not atmospheric. Just, you know, it's just a remark on the side. Once you have found your sound and you have a like pad, melodies, bass line, and some drums, of course, try to arrange things just to see if something is missing or not. And also there again, be maybe conservative is not the right word, but start just simple. Like, but how does a simple atmospheric drum and bass arrangement looks like? You start with a pad and an interesting sound that quite easily catches your listener's attention. And this is why you're having maybe the evolving sound and interesting stuff ongoing. So we're not producing jumbo drum and bass, for example, or we're not producing, I don't know what dubstep or something. It's about catching the listener's attention, right? And then, of course, if you want to support the DJ, maybe add some hi-hat to that one, and then have your evolving pad. So what we see here is just interesting stuff going on, and then of course the drums hit in. And very often, of course you can flip the whole thing, but for example, imagine not just to drop everything like drums and bass together, but just like maybe you have the drums and then it keeps on rolling and going. And then if you add the bass line underneath, this is really quite interesting and proven pattern how atmospheric drum and bass can evolve in the arrangement over time. Or the other way around, think about like the bass line. If, for example, you have the pad and sounds evolves, and then also the bass just adds some frequency and some additional stuff into the lower end, the spectrum, and then drums hit in. This is also very interesting. This can also sound. So think of that one, and then don't feel guilty using the time to evolve the stuff and doing variations in your drums. Maybe in the bass line, of course, you can add some additional notes to the pad and to your sound, but really feel free to take the time in the arrangement. It's not a pop song what we're doing here, right? It's atmospheric drum and bass, and people want to get lost in that one. Don't forget this fact. And then you drop everything, right? So drop for me means like bass line stops, drums stops, still maybe the pad is there, the melodies are there, everything goes down. Maybe you have some filters on top of that then like support the drop. And then from there, of course, you start to evolving everything again. And there I did mistakes in the past that I want to share with you. So usually for me, the break, the pause was too long in my songs in the past, I think. So I think the audience has changed and the sound has changed. It shouldn't take too long. And I haven't done here any scientific or any big research, but just if I have state-of-the-art tracks in mind, the break, the pause is not too long. And also you should not lose listeners' attention. And keep in mind, still there are people who maybe drop your track on the dance floor and you very fast lose people's attention. The break shouldn't like maybe pause for 1.5 minutes or something. It should be less. Then you should come in with the momentum and with the elements you established already in the first part. So the second part could be more or less maybe a copy paste of what you did in the first part, but still maybe you could condense things even further. So right, you could drop the bass and you could drop in with the bass and the drums in the same time, and then keep this again evolving over the time with some variations in the drums, like additional shakers or hi-hats, or maybe some cheesy strings on top of that. And then again, think about maybe the second part is as long as the first part, or maybe a little bit shorter, depends on the arrangement type you want to do. But I think if you just stick to this conservative arrangement, you're already set the scene quite good. Feel free to do variations of that one, and again, break the rules, try everything else what someone didn't or hasn't done before. That's music, that's creativity, that's art. If you think of some creativity and art theory like the Maya principle, so check this out on Wikipedia, for example. There are things that we as listeners expect of being atmospheric drum and bass itself, and what a bass line is. So try to stick to that. Try to not to be, sad to say, but try not to be too creative, but try to implement that pattern. And once you own that, once you got the system, then you can break the rules. Maybe you're adding a respace. Maybe you're adding some, I don't know what, Jesse elements. Maybe you're doing chord progressions like hell. Maybe you're using, I don't know what, techie two-step drums and so on. Be creative, of course. That's why we're doing music. But I think this is like at least what you should have in mind for doing the sound. So once you got your sound ready, right, it's time to publish stuff, and whatever this means, either upload stuff on SoundCloud or on YouTube, you send it to a label, you produce your own vinyl, whatever that is. But when was atmospheric drum and bass quite popular? It was at the end of the 90s and 2000. And at least maybe it's just me. And if I think now of covers for our music, is like this kind of like vector scope stuff or vector style music, like cubism, futuristic looking artwork, just like simplicity, typography, playing things like with Photoshop and Illustrator at this time was a thing, right? Not everyone had access to these tools, but still was doing creative things with the digital publishing. So let me just use Midjourney and see what if I type in there any things, and then maybe this might look familiar for covers we are doing there. Try to break the rules, and also like atmospheric drum and bass evolved over the last 20 years of time, if not 30 years. But just like this is the way how I would think of like, okay, how could a manifest look like that people realize this as atmospheric drum and bass. Let me know if I missed something, let me know, or maybe you see something in a different manner. I'm happy to discuss these things, but I would love to summarize everything together. I'm here to implement the sound. I'm here to actually do music like to follow on. I of course have my own different kind of like small rules to follow. And this is what really adds the value to this thing. This is like the basic, the foundation of things, how I see how atmospheric and intelligent drum and bass should look like. Let me know if you agree to this, and talk to you soon. Bye.